Robyn has dropped Sexistential, her ninth record, and her first after 2018's Honey. It's nearly been 8 years since she's last graced us for the record, and Sexistential marks a return to the frenetic energy from her seminal Body Talk trilogy. It's supposed to be like this collision with herself, per her own words. You guys know the drill. I'm going to give my overall take on it before going track by track and assigning a score. Before I get into the album, I do want to talk about Robyn for a little bit. I've been dying to cover Robyn on this channel. She's very much your favorite pop star's favorite pop star. She's directly inspired the likes of Troye Sivan, Carly Rae Jepsen, Charlie XCX, Dua Lipa, and way more people. The list goes on. She is this generational talent who's just kind of cemented today's alternative pop scene. To talk about her many achievements would be its own video, but long story short, this woman is a Swedish pop legend. She was signed at 15, she debuted back in 1995, Robyn is Here. That debut record had 2 stateside hits. She had a few disagreements with her label, which caused her to spawn her own label, Konnichiwa Records, a decade later, and she'd release her internationally successful self-titled record shortly after. This record is just so monumental because it was one of the few pop records that was covered and acclaimed by Pitchfork at the time, which really gave synth pop some major indie cred. Robyn also notably provided backing vocals for Britney Spears' iconic 2007 single Piece of Me, which was produced by her longtime collaborator Klaus Ahland, who I will talk about a little bit in this video. Her trilogy of records, the Body Talk series, which released at the top of the 2010s. It scored her Grammy noms, and her signature track, Dancing on My Own, came out then. Robyn would disappear for a little bit due to personal tragedies, but then she'd come back in 2018 with Honey. Since then, she was named Songwriter of the Decade by NME. Dancing on My Own was named the 20th greatest song of all time by the Rolling Stone. You might have seen her last year during SNL's 50th celebration, and she announced Sexistential late last year with Dopamine as the lead single. So here are my overall thoughts. Sexistential continues Robyn's streak of creating emotionally rich but dance floor ready bangers. The title itself covers the texture of the record. I found this to be one of her most contemplative records to date. Much of this album really wears its heart on its sleeve. The subject matter, touching on single motherhood, I've never once in my life expected to bop to a song about IVF treatments. It's very refreshing, very innovative, and still Robyn manages to convincingly make this concept work. I think the tracks really fit the mold that she set for herself very well. The lyrics are rambunctious, the synths shimmer brightly. The choruses will send you flying into the air, but the emotions give them gravity. Much of this album is produced by pop heavyweight Klaus Ahland, who slots back into this equation naturally. Other notable collaborators include Elvira Anderfjord, fresh off her work on Addison's debut record, Oscar Holter, who's worked with The Weeknd, and Teo Cruz, who co-composed the song Dopamine. At just under 30 minutes and with 9 tracks, Robyn does not overstay her welcome at all. This album's a very breezy listen. It does not ask too much of its listeners other than some time to sweat, dance, and feel. The title track remains one of my personal highlights. I think Robyn lays out in no short terms what she's been up to. She's still having hookups on Raya in her 40s. She's pursuing motherhood. It is her dry humor, and she's unabashedly sexy about all of this. I thought it also revealed the central theme of the record, which was living alongside your legacy. Robyn has been this force in pop for 3 decades now. Many of her peers have kind of resigned themselves to either different genres or just outright retirement. Robyn is still here, she's still kicking it, but instead of trying to pander and feel young, she marries the realities of her current life with her music. On a lyrical front, Robyn does not shy away from anything at all. She's always been earnest, and randomly just weaving Japanese into a song or name-dropping Adam Driver thinking he's Adam Sandler in another movie is just very effortless. Also just very her. Her ability to just be confrontational and outright sing about what she wants without pretense is the superpower that she's had forever, but really shines here. Light Up was an early standout for me. It's a brilliant showcase of her ability to merge with the instrumental. The verse work is conversational, yet she follows this slick synth to great heights on the chorus as she sings Light Up the Way to Your Heart. Each synth kind of felt like a step up the staircase of light that finally blows out in that bridge. Robyn's framing of maturity beyond the aesthetic and as a state of mind really makes this album feel like a refreshing manifesto. Talk to Me, one of the singles, absolute banger when I listen to it without close reading, but the lyrics feel wholesome and they have a tenderness about them, about communication. It Don't Mean a Thing really talks us through this denial of after some rejected feelings through distorted sense and feigned nonchalance. One thing I liked is the examination and self-reflectiveness of her past. Two tracks, Blow My Mind and Sucker for Love, are covers of pre-existing songs. Blow My Mind is a vaporwave redo of one of her tracks off her 2002 record, Don't Stop the Music. Sucker for Love itself was a track that she wrote for Roixop back in 2014. I definitely butchered that. Now it's done in her own voice and on her own terms, and I feel like these two tracks reiterate her self-awareness that she has been the blueprint of her genre, but she's also still reinventing and pushing forward. And now, per tradition, I'm going to talk about each track very briefly. The album opens on Really Real, whose daring instrumental really takes you on a journey. The whole track had me on the ropes. The opening verse describes how disoriented that she felt in this hookup. She's questioning reality, and then we get this curveball chorus that explodes like a galaxy collapsing on itself. It sparkles and synths. The bridge itself feels like the splitting of an atom. That's just how I felt it sounded like. There's an aside of a phone call to her mom before this whole thing distorts, and the final chorus sucker punches you. It's very beautifully engineered. Dopamine being the lead single makes a lot of sense now. I think it's one of the more conventional tracks, if you can call anything Robyn does truly conventional. The instrumental itself feels like a dopamine hit. The rolling wave that kind of tickles you at your core. The chorus has this awareness of the chemicals behind her feelings, but also questioning aloud if we feel that too. Verse 2 captures the rush of falling in love and just surrendering to that rush. I found that this track continues this dichotomy that she explores throughout the record. Like, what's real, what's fake? Is there a difference between fact and feeling? It's one that she leaves unanswered because there is no truth. Blow My Mind is a rework of her old song. This one has a bubblegummy, floaty feel that she's kind of known for. It's very textured compared to the original track, which I had not realized was a slower R&B piece. This one's produced so magically. It honors the lyrics being sensual and explorative with a partner, but in a very playful way. The way that she sings Scrumptious Little Face, you can almost hear her smile behind it. One thing I really loved was the backing vocals. They have this very reassuring tone to them that floats up and down whimsically. It's just texturally very romantic and just slick. Sucker for Love opens with this like revved up motorcycle racing down a road made out of blinking synths and soaring vocals. Verse 1 has her wholeheartedly embracing being the soft person in the world, and the world punishes people for being soft, but she still owns who she is. She rides the beat and the synths just effortlessly. I love the little drum sequences throughout the song. It feels like a skittering heartbeat. The bridge declutters all of this for a moment to let her admit that she could be bulletproof, but she'd still be a sucker for love, and her voice on that final chorus where she finally lets loose feels triumphant. It Don't Mean a Thing is a track about heartbreak. The opening interlude straight up reminisces and laments times that this lover of hers has made her really fall hard. Each of these verses really cut to the core about moments that she thought that they had it all and that they were just working, and the chorus is teed up so well by a very dynamic sounding pre-chorus. I just love how clean and simple the chorus is. You can really hear Elvira's touch on the production. Elvira has worked on Addison's debut, and this track itself kind of feels like it'd fit that record. But then again, it's Robyn's touch and delivery that differentiates this track quite a bit. Talk to Me is an absolute club banger. I think it's the one that I will listen to most moving forward. I had talked about it a little bit earlier, but there's just something very timeless about this. The lyricism on this really fits Body Talk's mold so much that it almost feels like a long lost cut. The innuendos are done so tastefully, but also just, fun. But the real star here in this track is Robyn's ability to really meld with the production, which is done by Volter and Alland. Her voice just feels fused into every hit of the drum, every ornamental synth. Max Martin had a co-write on this track, and it tracks because it just feels very mathematically designed to be a bop. Sexistential, the title track, is still a curveball, even if I had heard it ahead of time. Sequenced into the album, it's this very conventional rap that goes TMI over this, like, lo-fi house production that really puts her honesty at the center stage. My personal stim from this album is going to be the push, push, hold it, breathe before that second chorus. It's so satisfying to the ear, and I adore how trippy the instrumental floats in within that verse about her hyperdrive ovaries. It's a very subtle shift that you have to listen in to really catch. Light Up felt quintessential Robyn, but with the motif of being on a spaceship. The track is about acceptance of self and her lover, where she asks them to show her where, the way is to their heart. She really lets them down. She knows she's done it, but she wants to still try, and the way that she builds towards that bridge and final section, it does feel like you're being beamed up by a spaceship into space. The instrumental and the production on this one sounded especially good on my equipment. I feel like this is a headphones listen. Do that for this track. Into the Sun is the album closer, and it feels like the endpoint of a collision where emotions finally bubble up to the surface. The track soars and shimmers like a hurtling spaceship trying to chase a sunset. The chorus is a leap of faith. That's kind of how I interpreted it. The verse is about her finding it in herself to commit to something as wild as flying into the sun. I felt like the production was epic and grandiose. But it also reminds me of that burst of sunlight that you get after you've had a very long night and you finally look up at the sky. Overall, Sexistential is a great reintroduction for Robyn. I wouldn't call it her best work to date, but it's a reminder of her impact on pop. It's very hard to reinvent the blueprint, but Robyn doesn't bother to try, instead showing us that she still got it, and then some. I'd give this like an 8.3 out of 10. And that's a wrap on my review for Sexistential. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this album, if you've been a fan of Robyn for a long time, if this is your first Robyn record ever. I'm curious to hear. I've always wanted to cover her on the channel. This weekend had so many beautiful releases like Ray and Slater, who I will review later on this week. I don't know when, but look out for those videos. A shout out to my members. Thank you so much. A shout out to my subscribers. I do this for you, and I can't wait to see you very, very soon.